receipts are in, and they are absolutely devastating. Archewell, the so-called philanthropic powerhouse that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry built their entire post-royal identity around, has just been exposed in the most humiliating way possible. Financial documents have leaked, and what they reveal is nothing short of a scandal that has left even their most loyal supporters struggling to defend them. Let's talk numbers, because these figures tell a story that no amount of PR spin can bury. In their latest filing, Archewell recorded total expenses of $5.1 million. That's a staggering amount for any charity, but here's where it gets truly jaw-dropping. The donations they actually brought in? Just $2.1 million. You don't need to be a mathematician to see the problem here. They spent more than double what they raised, and the grants they distributed to causes that supposedly matter so deeply to them? A mere $1.25 million. Let that sink in for a moment. Out of $5.1 million in expenses, only $1.25 million actually went to charitable grants. So where did the rest of that money go? Sources close to the organization paint a picture that has royal watchers shaking their heads in disbelief. The bulk of those expenses, insiders claim, went directly toward funding the couple's lavish quasi-royal tours. Nigeria, Colombia, those headline-grabbing trips where Meghan and Harry showed up with full security details, designer wardrobes, and camera crews capturing every carefully staged moment of their supposed humanitarian work. Industry insiders are calling it what it is, a vanity project dressed up as philanthropy. One source put it bluntly, saying the charity has become nothing more than a personal branding vehicle for two people desperate to maintain relevance. And the numbers back that assessment up completely. Those expenses didn't just stay flat, they soared. We're talking a 54% increase from the previous year, when they recorded $3.3 million in expenses. That kind of jump doesn't happen by accident. It happens when priorities shift from actual charitable giving to something else entirely. The timing of this leak couldn't be worse for the Sussexes. They've spent years positioning themselves as champions of good causes, as humanitarians who left the royal family to make a real difference in the world. Remember all those speeches about wanting to do things their own way, about being free from palace constraints so they could truly help people? Well, these figures suggest a very different reality. A reality where the photo opportunities matter more than the philanthropy, where the appearance of doing good takes precedence over actually doing it. And here's what makes this even more damaging. The charity world is talking. Nonprofit experts are raising eyebrows at an organization that spends this much while giving out this little. Questions are being asked about oversight, about accountability, about whether donors truly understood where their money was going. But the financial chaos is only the beginning of this story, because what's happening behind closed doors at Archewell is even more troubling. The question everyone is asking right now is devastatingly simple. Where exactly did $5.1 million go if only a fraction ended up helping actual causes? The answer, according to sources familiar with the organization's operations, reveals a pattern that has charity watchdogs deeply concerned. Those quasi-royal tours that Meghan and Harry embarked on throughout the year weren't cheap. Nigeria alone reportedly required extensive security arrangements, luxury accommodations, private transportation, and a full entourage of staff to coordinate every moment. Colombia followed the same playbook. Grand arrivals, carefully orchestrated photo opportunities, meetings with dignitaries, and enough footage to fill countless social media posts. The optics were stunning. The actual charitable impact, that's where things get murky. Take the Nigeria trip as a prime example. One of the grants listed in the filing was $250,000 to refurbish basketball courts in the country. On paper, that sounds admirable, but sources close to the situation point out an uncomfortable truth. The cost of actually getting Harry and Meghan there, housing them in appropriate style, and ensuring their security likely dwarfed that grant several times over. So the question becomes whether they flew halfway around the world to help Nigerian communities, or whether the basketball courts were simply the justification for another elaborate photo tour. Reports suggest the couple's approach to these trips mirrors everything critics have accused them of since leaving the royal family. Style over substance, image over impact, every handshake photographed, every embrace captured for maximum emotional effect. Meanwhile, the actual money flowing to people in need represents a fraction of what gets spent making Harry and Meghan look generous. The 54% spike in expenses from the previous year tells its own story. In their earlier filing, Archewell recorded $3.3 million in costs. That was already raising eyebrows among non-profit analysts who questioned the overhead ratio. But jumping to $5.1 million while simultaneously watching donations plummet? That suggests an organization more focused on expansion and visibility than fiscal responsibility. Insiders describe a culture where no expense was spared when it came to the principles themselves. First-class everything. the finest hotels, security details that rivaled what they had during their royal days, all technically justifiable as necessary for high-profile philanthropists doing important work. But when the grants going out the door barely scratch $1.25 million, the justification starts to crumble. One charity sector analyst put it this way: when you see an organization spending this aggressively while giving this modestly, it raises fundamental questions about mission alignment. Are they there to help people, or are they there to help themselves look like people who help people? It's a distinction that matters enormously in the nonprofit world. And the financial strain is showing in ways that go far beyond spreadsheets and tax filings. Because just as these damning numbers were leaking to the press, Archewell was quietly making moves that would send shockwaves through their already diminished staff. Right before the holidays, while most people were preparing for celebrations with loved ones, 3 Archewell employees received news that shattered their festive plans. They were being let go. Just like that. Merry Christmas, you no longer have a job. The timing alone speaks volumes about how Harry and Meghan handle the people who work for them. The staff cuts came alongside a rebranding effort that has left many scratching their heads. Archewell is now operating under a new name, Archewell Philanthropies. On the surface, it sounds like a simple organizational shift, but sources familiar with the restructuring say the name change is actually a strategic maneuver designed to create distance from the mounting negative press surrounding the original foundation, a fresh coat of paint on a house that's rotting from the inside. What makes this situation even more infuriating is the blatant contradiction in how the Sussexes handled the announcement. Their representatives repeatedly denied that any staffing changes were taking place. The same full team remains in place, they insisted. Everything is fine, business as usual. But then came the inevitable caveat that exposed the lie. Some staff redundancies are inevitable, particularly with junior admin roles. So which is it? Is the team intact, or are people losing their jobs? The doublespeak is almost impressive in its audacity. One of the employees let go, Kristen Sleven, was reportedly earning $146,000 annually. That's a significant salary, and losing it right before the holidays would devastate anyone. But according to insiders, the staff were told they were being terminated because the charity was closing. Closing. That's the word that was used. Yet publicly, Archewell Philanthropies continues to operate as if nothing has changed. The messaging couldn't be more contradictory if they tried. This pattern of saying one thing while doing another has become a hallmark of the Sussex operation. Staff members are told one story behind closed doors, while the press receives an entirely different narrative. It creates an environment of confusion, distrust, and constant anxiety for anyone trying to do their job. And it explains why so many talented professionals have fled the organization over the past 5 years. The restructuring also raises serious questions about the foundation's financial stability. When a charity starts cutting junior staff while simultaneously hemorrhaging money on executive travel and lavish tours, something is deeply wrong with the priorities. The people at the bottom of the organizational chart are paying the price for decisions made at the very top. Industry observers note that healthy nonprofits don't operate this way. They don't blindside employees during the holiday season. They don't deny layoffs while simultaneously confirming them. They don't rebrand to escape bad press rather than addressing the underlying problems. But Archewell has never operated like a typical charity. It operates like an extension of Harry and Meghan's personal brand. And right now, that brand is hemorrhaging credibility faster than anyone thought possible. But the staff departures at the lower levels are nothing compared to the bombshell resignation that just rocked the entire organization. 11 publicists in 5 years. Let that number sink in for a moment. 11 skilled communications professionals, many with sterling reputations and impressive resumes, have walked through the revolving door of the Sussex operation. The latest casualty? Meredith Maines, who was announced as their chief communications officer back in January with tremendous fanfare. Less than 12 months later, she's gone. Another name added to what insiders have grimly dubbed the Sussex Survivors Club. Maines wasn't some inexperienced newcomer taking a chance on a high-profile gig. She came from the venture capital and tech industry, where managing chaos and high-stakes situations was part of her daily routine. Sources who know her describe an unflappable professional who doesn't complain and handles pressure with grace. If anyone could wrangle the Sussex publicity nightmare into something manageable, it should have been her. Instead, she lasted less than a year before heading for the exit. The timing of her departure is particularly telling. News of her resignation was strategically dumped during the final week of December, traditionally the slowest news period of the entire year. Most journalists are on holiday. Major networks run skeleton crews. Stories released during this window often disappear without a trace, and that's exactly what Harry and Meghan were banking on. They wanted Meredith's exit to vanish into the post-Christmas void where nobody would notice or care. But people noticed, and people definitely care. Because when you burn through 11 publicists faster than most people go through smartphones, it stops being about the publicists and starts being about you. The common denominator in all these departures isn't bad luck or unfortunate circumstances. It's Harry and Meghan themselves. Sources close to Maines paint a picture of mounting frustration. She reportedly joined with genuine optimism, believing she could help rehabilitate the couple's battered image and perhaps even facilitate reconciliation with the royal family. She was photographed in London over the summer, meeting with King Charles's communications team at a private members club. The talks were meant to be secret, a delicate diplomatic mission to thaw the icy relationship between father and son. But even that got bungled when photographers caught her in the act, exposing the back-channel efforts before they could bear fruit. One insider revealed that Maines did what she needed to do and then jumped ship. The phrasing is telling. She fulfilled her contractual obligations and got out before the toxicity consumed her professional reputation entirely. Because that's what happens when you work for the Sussexes. Your own credibility becomes collateral damage in their never-ending war with the press, the palace, and increasingly reality itself. The 11th departure also exposes a brutal truth about the Sussex operation. They don't listen. Multiple sources confirm that Meghan in particular refuses to take advice from the very experts she hires. She believes she knows best, even when evidence repeatedly proves otherwise. But the specific incident that reportedly pushed Meredith over the edge involves some very famous reality television stars. The Kardashian Christmas party debacle has become the stuff of Hollywood legend, and not in a good way. What should have been a simple networking opportunity at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday celebration turned into a full-blown public relations disaster that insiders say was the final straw for Meredith Maines. The whole mess perfectly encapsulates everything wrong with how Harry and Meghan operate. Here's what happened. The Sussexes scored an invitation to one of the most exclusive holiday parties in Los Angeles. They showed up looking thrilled. Harry was photographed sweating and grinning. Meghan wore a dress that raised more than a few eyebrows. They posed willingly with the Kardashian-Jenner clan, including shots with Kris herself and Kim Kardashian. Everything seemed fine. Two famous families mingling at a glamorous event. Standard celebrity fare. Then the pictures hit Instagram. Kris Jenner posted a carousel of party photos, and there were Harry and Meghan smiling alongside the reality television royalty. Within hours, those images vanished, deleted, scrubbed from existence, and the reason why exposed the Sussexes in the most embarrassing way possible. According to multiple reports, Harry and Meghan demanded the Kardashians remove the photos. Their team claimed the couple had checked no on a consent form indicating they didn't want their images shared on social media. There was just one problem. The Kardashian side fired back immediately, stating flatly that no such consent form ever existed. Harry and Meghan had been caught in a lie so easily disprovable it bordered on absurd. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Sources close to the Kardashian-Jenner family revealed they were genuinely annoyed. Not only had Harry and Meghan overshadowed Kris's milestone celebration with unnecessary drama, but they'd also essentially accused their hosts of violating some non-existent agreement. In Hollywood, burning bridges with the Kardashians is a spectacularly bad move. That family has more connections and influence than most studio executives. Now imagine being Meredith Maines in that moment. You're the chief communications officer, which means cleaning up messes is literally your job. But this mess was entirely self-inflicted by your own clients. You have to call the Kardashians people and somehow explain why Harry and Meghan, who gleefully posed for photos at a party they chose to attend, now want those photos erased. The humiliation of making that call alone would be enough to make anyone reconsider their career choices. Reports also suggest the timing played a role in the panic. The party photos emerged right before Remembrance Sunday, a sacred day for veterans that Harry supposedly cares deeply about. Being seen partying with reality stars while servicemen and women were being honored apparently didn't fit the image they wanted to project. But November 11th falls on the same date every single year. If you're going to a party on November 10th, you should probably anticipate what's coming the next morning. The Kardashian catastrophe wasn't just embarrassing, it was a symptom of something far deeper and more troubling within the Sussex operation. 30 staff members gone in 5 years. That's not a statistic, that's a massacre. And the carnage extends far beyond publicists and communications officers. Assistants, advisors, executives, coordinators, people from every level of the Sussex operation have fled. And what they're doing afterward tells a story more damning than any leaked financial document ever could. They're erasing Harry and Meghan from their professional histories. Every single departed employee has scrubbed any mention of working for the Sussexes from their resumes and LinkedIn profiles. Think about that for a moment. In most industries, working for high-profile clients is a career booster. It opens doors and impresses future employers. But working for Archewell? That's become something people actively hide, a professional stain they'd rather pretend never happened. One former staff member reportedly left the Sussex orbit to take a job in insurance. Insurance? No disrespect to that industry, but when someone abandons a glamorous position adjacent to royalty for the world of actuarial tables and policy premiums, you know something has gone catastrophically wrong. That person looked at their options and decided that literally anything would be better than another day working for Harry and Meghan. The pattern emerging from these departures paints a devastating picture. Sources describe an environment where nothing is ever good enough, where advice from experienced professionals gets dismissed because Meghan believes she knows better, where the goalposts shift constantly, making it impossible to ever satisfy the principals, where loyalty flows in only one direction, upward, while blame inevitably rolls downhill. Royal commentators have drawn uncomfortable parallels to the bullying allegations that surfaced during the couple's time at Kensington Palace. Back then, staff members reportedly complained about Meghan's treatment of them. An investigation was supposedly launched. The results were never made public, and the Sussexes dismissed the whole thing as a smear campaign. But when the same patterns keep repeating across continents, across organizations, across years, the excuses start wearing thin. Industry insiders say that working for Harry and Meghan has become a career liability in Los Angeles. Word travels fast in entertainment circles, and the Sussex reputation precedes them now. Recruiters quietly warn candidates about what they're getting into. Former employees share horror stories off the record. The couple who once seemed like the ultimate get for any ambitious professional has become a cautionary tale whispered at industry events. What makes this especially tragic is that it didn't have to be this way. Harry and Meghan arrived in California with enormous goodwill, limitless potential, and access to the best talent money could buy. They could have built something genuinely meaningful. Instead, they've created a revolving door of disillusionment that spins faster with each passing year. The professional destruction extends to reputations beyond their own. Everyone who touches the Sussex operation walks away diminished. But the allegations about why so many people are running for the exits go far deeper than simple management failures. The term Sussex Survivors Club didn't emerge from nowhere. It was coined by people who lived through the experience of working for Harry and Meghan, and the stories they tell behind closed doors are absolutely chilling. This year, two major publications finally pulled back the curtain on what insiders had been whispering about for years, and the revelations confirmed every suspicion critics ever had. The Hollywood Reporter dropped a bombshell investigation that sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Sources described Meghan as a demanding boss, whose expectations bordered on impossible. Staff members reported walking on eggshells, never knowing what might trigger displeasure. The atmosphere was described as tense, unpredictable, and emotionally exhausting. People weren't just leaving the job, they were escaping it. Then Vanity Fair followed up with their own extensive reporting, and the picture grew even darker. Meghan was called a tyrant in high heels. Sources claimed she reduced grown men to tears with her criticism and demands. The allegations painted a portrait of someone who confused perfectionism with cruelty, who mistook micromanagement for leadership. Multiple former employees corroborated the accounts, each adding their own details to an increasingly damning narrative. Meghan has denied these allegations, of course. She's dismissed them as racist attacks, as media bias, as the bitter complaints of disgruntled employees. But when the accusations keep coming from different people across different organizations over different years, the denials start losing their power. At some point, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. What makes the situation particularly frustrating for those who've worked with the couple is Meghan's apparent inability to accept responsibility or correction. Sources say she genuinely believes she's the victim in every scenario. When a publicity campaign fails, it's the publicist's fault. When a project underperforms, the team didn't execute properly. When staff members leave, they simply couldn't handle the pressure of working for someone so important. The idea that her own behavior might be contributing to these problems never seems to register. One insider put it bluntly, "There's only so much a professional can do when the principal won't accept feedback. You can craft the perfect strategy, assemble the ideal team, and create flawless plans. But if your client refuses to listen, refuses to adapt, and refuses to acknowledge their own role in every disaster, you're fighting a losing battle." Eventually, the smart ones realize they're destroying their own careers trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. The toxic workplace allegations have real consequences beyond hurt feelings and damaged careers. They've become part of the public narrative around the Sussexes, undermining everything they claim to stand for. How can you position yourself as a champion of mental health while allegedly driving employees to breakdowns? How can you advocate for kindness while reportedly treating your own staff with contempt? The contradictions are becoming impossible to reconcile, and while the professional world grapples with these revelations, Meghan has apparently set her sights on an entirely new career ambition that has Hollywood genuinely stunned. Just when you think the Sussex saga couldn't get more absurd, Meghan Markle has apparently decided she's ready to become a film director. Not someday in the distant future after years of training and learning the craft. Right now, with zero experience behind the camera. And the project she reportedly wanted to helm first? The Netflix romantic comedy she and Harry are attached to produce. The audacity is truly breathtaking. Sources close to the production reveal that Meghan didn't just casually float the idea of directing. She pushed hard for it. Really hard. She wanted control over casting decisions, creative input on camera angles, and final say over the artistic vision. Essentially, she wanted to run the entire production despite having never directed anything more complicated than her own Instagram posts. Netflix, to their credit, shut it down immediately. No meetings, no negotiations, no second chances. The answer was a flat, unequivocal no. Insiders say the streaming giant was willing to keep Harry and Meghan on as producers, a title that sounds impressive, but often means very little in practical terms. Executive producer credits get handed out like party favors in Hollywood, but giving Meghan actual creative control over a multi-million-dollar production, that was never going to happen. Netflix has already learned expensive lessons about the couple's ability to deliver content that audiences actually want to watch. They weren't about to compound those losses by letting an inexperienced socialite play director. The rejection reportedly stung. Meghan had apparently convinced herself that her brief acting career on a cable legal drama qualified her to step behind the camera on a major streaming platform production. The logic is baffling to anyone who actually understands how the entertainment industry works. Acting and directing are completely different skill sets. Plenty of successful actors have tried directing and failed spectacularly, and those were people with decades of on-set experience watching master filmmakers work. But here's where the story takes an even more outrageous turn. Sources suggest Meghan hasn't abandoned her directorial ambitions. She's simply shifted her focus to a different project, one that has royal watchers choking on their tea and industry insiders questioning whether she's lost touch with reality entirely. Word on the street is that Harry and Meghan are actively developing a feature film about Princess Diana. Not a documentary, though that's been discussed as well, but an actual scripted dramatic film about Harry's late mother. And according to reports that have left even seasoned Hollywood observers stunned, Meghan is positioning herself to direct it. She wants this to be her directorial debut, a film about her husband's mother, a woman she never met, a woman whose memory is sacred to millions around the world. The sheer hubris of this ambition defies comprehension, but sources insist the conversations are happening, the plans are being made, and Meghan is quietly but decisively maneuvering to make it happen. The question is whether Netflix or anyone else will actually let her. The Diana project represents the ultimate gamble for Harry and Meghan. It's their potential crown jewel, the one card they hold that could theoretically justify every dollar Netflix has poured into their disappointing deal. But the way they're reportedly approaching it has left industry insiders genuinely alarmed about their judgment and their intentions. Sources confirm that Harry and Meghan have been taking meetings with writers, agents, and producers. They're actively breaking story, discussing casting possibilities, and mapping out how they want to present the life and legacy of Diana, Princess of Wales. On paper, Harry's involvement makes sense. This is his mother, his memories, his trauma. His perspective could bring an authenticity that no outside filmmaker could replicate. But Meghan's role in shaping this project? That's where things get deeply uncomfortable. Reports suggest Meghan wants to be intensely hands-on from start to finish. She sees herself not just as a producer, but as the creative visionary guiding the entire production. The directorial debut angle keeps surfacing in conversations with people familiar with the project. She apparently believes that telling Diana's story under her gaze and guidance is the only way Harry would feel comfortable proceeding. It's a convenient argument that positions her at the center of something she has no natural connection to. The buzz in royal circles is one of absolute disbelief. Diana remains one of the most beloved figures of the 20th century. Her memory is fiercely protected by millions who watched her life unfold and mourned her tragic death. The idea of Meghan Markle, a woman Diana never met, a woman whose relationship with the royal family has been defined by conflict and accusation, directing a film about her? It strikes many as the ultimate act of opportunism. Netflix reportedly views the Diana project as potentially huge. The emotional punch could rival the explosive Oprah interview that first made the streaming service believe the Sussexes were worth their massive investment. A film about Diana, featuring never-before-heard memories from her son, produced with the full cooperation of Harry himself. That's the kind of content that could break viewing records and justify every penny spent. But there's a catch. Netflix wants the bombshells. They want Harry to unlock his memory bank and deliver explosive revelations about King Charles, Queen Camilla, or other senior royals. Without those salacious details, the project loses much of its commercial appeal. It becomes just another Diana retrospective in a world already saturated with them. The pressure on Harry to monetize his mother's memory with maximum drama must be immense. Prince William has made his position crystal clear. He wants no part of any Sussex production about their mother. He believes he's already done everything appropriate to honor Diana's legacy and wants her memory to remain what people genuinely remember, not what Harry and Meghan choose to package for streaming audiences. The Diana gambit is high risk with uncertain reward, but it may be all the Sussexes have left as the walls close in around them. As 2025 draws to a close, the Sussexes find themselves in a position that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. The golden couple who left the royal family with the world at their feet now face a reckoning on every front. The finances are crumbling, the staff have fled, the reputation lies in tatters, and the family they abandoned wants nothing to do with them. King Charles is reportedly planning a visit to the United States in April as part of celebrations marking 250 years of American independence. Under normal circumstances, a father visiting the country where his son lives would naturally include some family time. But sources close to the palace have made it abundantly clear that the king will not have time to see Harry and Meghan during his trip. The diplomatic language barely conceals the brutal truth. Charles is choosing to avoid his own son rather than risk the circus that any meeting would inevitably become. Prince William's position is even more uncompromising. When he travels to America for the World Cup this summer in his capacity as president of the Football Association, there will be no brotherly reunion, no olive branches extended, no behind-the-scenes reconciliation attempts. William has apparently decided that Harry is almost as much of a pariah as their disgraced Uncle Andrew. The comparison is devastating, and the distance between the brothers seems permanently unbridgeable. Back in Montecito, the Sussex household reportedly spent Christmas in near isolation. Meghan's mother, Doria, was likely the only family member present. Thomas Markle remains estranged, a relationship Meghan seems content to leave broken despite her public pronouncements about the importance of family. The irony of championing family togetherness while refusing to reconcile with her own father apparently escapes her entirely. The professional landscape looks equally bleak. Meghan's cooking show was a disaster. Her podcast failed to capture audiences. The As Ever brand has barely made a footprint beyond her existing fan base. Every project she touches seems to underperform, and the excuses about media bias and unfair treatment are wearing thinner by the day. At some point, the product simply has to deliver, and so far, nothing has. Industry insiders suggest that 2026 offers little reason for optimism. The Netflix deal that once seemed like their ticket to lasting relevance has produced nothing but disappointment. The Spotify partnership collapsed in spectacular fashion. Speaking engagements pay well but offer diminishing returns as audiences grow tired of the same grievances repackaged in different venues. The royal titles that Meghan believed would open every door in Hollywood have become anchors dragging them down. The question hanging over everything is simple but devastating. What happens when the money runs out and the opportunities dry up? When the staff are gone and the deals stop coming? When even the tabloids lose interest in chronicling their decline? The walls are closing in on Harry and Meghan, and for once, there's no one left to blame but themselves. Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you won't believe what's coming next.